So hi, thank you. I'm very happy to be here tonight. What we'll do is we will talk a little bit about 1 minute on what federation is, and then we'll talk about, you'll get an update on the state of anti-Semitism locally, globally, and also statewide. I have to tell you that some of this data is about 1 to 2 years old, only because reports come out in that time period, whether it's the ADL report or it's the reports from Homeland Security. So hopefully in the spring, we'll have updated reports from data from 2020. You'll hear about Federation's response to anti-Semitism in our community and how you can help, which in my opinion is the most important. So Federation, as you know, is an organization that cares for the vulnerable. We're all about connecting Jews. We're all about connecting Jews to each other, whether it's this year, it was all virtual, but we did it. We are preparing for and strengthening our security in response to the hate and anti-Semitism. And of course, we've always worked for Tikkun Olam, whether it's here in New Jersey or abroad. Our impact, as you can see, ranges from COVID relief to aid for Holocaust survivors, all the way to need-based camps, Israel trips, Hebrew free loans, etc. So we are really here for you, and we are here for the community. So let's start with some data. Mark, are you seeing everything okay?
I am now. It's been flipping around, but now it says help for individuals and families.
Okay.
Good.
Good. Okay. So the FBI puts out a report every 2 years, and the report of 2019 is actually their latest. And what you can see here is that Jews are 60% of the victims of hate crimes. We are the largest by far, as Muslims are a second, number two, but they are a far number two at 13%. So if you were ever in doubt what our status was, you shouldn't be anymore. According to the FBI, there have been 953 incidents all over New Jersey, okay, which is different from what the ADL says, but that's fairly normal, the discrepancies. But what I know, what I use is mostly ADL reports because they are tracking it constantly and always updating their database. Okay, so here you're able to see stats from New Jersey. In 2019, for the second year in a row, New Jersey was the second highest state in the country as far as recorded anti-Semitic incidents. There were 345 anti-Semitic incidents that were documented. And I underline documented only because there are so many more that are not documented because people just don't report them. Which I'll talk about later, but which is why it's very important to report these incidents to either Federation or the police so that we can pass it on to other agencies, law enforcement agencies. Monmouth County was the third highest in New Jersey, Middlesex County the sixth highest. And as you can see, there are almost 150 incidents of white supremacist propaganda, which is important to know, which we'll talk about later on. And at the moment, right now, there are 21 hate groups being tracked in New Jersey. Now, the numbers you see here, from what I'm told from my sources at ADL, will be higher in 2020. but we'll have to wait to the spring, to actually see that. Now you can see right here where we are, the larger the circle, the larger the recorded incidents. So if we are over here, you can see that it's pretty much smack in the middle. We are kind of like, I'm not going to use the word epicenter, but there's definitely not a lack of anti-Semitic incidents in our area. Okay. So hyperlocally in our two counties last year, and again, 2019, I say last year, but because this is the data I'm using, there were 82 officially recorded anti-Semitic incidents in both counties. My guess is that there were more. Some that stood out were actually close to home here, East Brunswick and Highland Park. East Brunswick, there were several cases in the public schools of anti-Semitism. There was vandalism on some Jewish residents' cars in East Brunswick. Highland Park, I'm sure you might know, in the middle school, there was a few issues with anti-Semitism, which resulted in a anti-bias curriculum that was inserted into the current curriculum. So that was actually a good step that was taken. Marlborough Township, for me, this is the most severe, only because it could have led to something greater. An individual called the gym and asked how many Jewish members there were, and that if the employee didn't tell him, there would be a big problem. Obviously, the employee didn't tell him, and nothing happened. But you can see the amount, the types of incidents that happened right here at home. Two other incidents that I'll bring up didn't happen here, but Gregory Lepsky, who's from Point Pleasant, New Jersey, was sentenced to 16 years in federal prison for plotting to use a pressure cooker to commit terrorism in New York City on behalf of ISIS. So he's a local in Point Pleasant, born and raised, and almost committed a terror attack on behalf of ISIS in New York. And the Jersey City shooters in December 2019 bought their guns in Monmouth County. So even if they don't live here, they're passing through here. What you're seeing here are just some blanket examples of anti-Semitism in New Jersey. These pictures are local. What I want to point out is the top middle with the banner New Jersey European Heritage Association, which we'll talk about. This is a white supremacist group that is very active in New Jersey and also nationally. So keep that in mind as we go through the presentation, because I will talk about them again. One other local incident that I want to talk about. You can read through these, you can look at the other two, but I want to talk about the man in the middle. His name is Richard Tobin. He belongs to a nationwide or worldwide, actually, organization called The Base, a white supremacist group, which I'll talk about again. If you remember, he was arrested for threatening to break into or to enter Menlo Park Mall in Edison with a machete and to kill as many Black people as he could find in the mall, because he is a Nazi, a neo-Nazi, and he thought there were too many African-American people in the mall. Another thing to point out here is that he was the director of something called the Great Lakes Cell, and he was sending orders to other members of this group in Michigan and Wisconsin to carry out acts of vandalism against synagogues, which were successful. So he's located in New Jersey, almost committed a terror attack in Menlo Park Mall, and was sending orders to other members of his organization far away in Michigan and Wisconsin, which just tells you the reach that these groups have with today's easy technology, easy communications and technology. Now, because of all this, the New Jersey Homeland Security raised the terror threat level for white supremacist extremists to high in February of 2020, and it stayed that way. Again, because of the 21 hate groups, and because 9% of national white supremacy propaganda came from New Jersey. So think about that. Small state of New Jersey, 9% of all white supremacist propaganda came from here and came from that organization that I told you, the New Jersey European Heritage Association. There have been hundreds of reported incidents of flyer distribution, white supremacist flyer distribution in New Jersey and in our area as well, South River, New Brunswick, off the top of my head, Woodbridge, all of this happened right here. So the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security decided to raise the threat level, and you can see in the square, you can see that you can see if you can zoom, or I can zoom in maybe, or maybe not. But Middlesex and Monmouth County, mostly Middlesex, the whiter the mark, the more dense the cases of white supremacist propaganda took place. So, North, I guess that's North Middlesex County, had the highest amount in this area. And it looks like in all of New Jersey. So in my opinion, if you ask me, we are pretty much in the middle of it all. So geographically, I'm going to stop at the moment. That's local. So I want to tell you what Federation is doing about all of this. So the number one priority for me and for the Jewish Community Relations Council is to make sure that this subject of extremism, anti-Semitism and extremism in general remains the priority for our lawmakers, whether it's our congressional representatives, whether it's our local state representatives, the governor's office. We are planning, we did all throughout 2020, and we're planning to continue in a more aggressive way to make sure that this subject is at the top of the list. And one of the, I'm not going to say one of the good things about COVID, but one of the things that happened due to COVID was all of these Zoom meetings, and it actually made access to our lawmakers much easier. So we were able to connect with them several times throughout the year, not only to talk about COVID relief, but also to talk about the rise in anti-Semitism in general, and actually related to COVID as well. So this will continue. Our security department, Amy Keller, if you don't know, if you've heard of her or not, she's the director of our security initiatives. She will continue with her work, is assisting the Jewish organizations in our community to get security grants, whether it's federal or state. We will continue to work with federal law, local and state law enforcement on a regular basis. We will facilitate security training. You might have already attended some in the past, and this will continue on and on. There's no choice. Also very important is building relationships and forging alliances with religious and civic partners, meaning non-Jewish religious and civic partners outside our community. If we want friends, we need to be a friend. And we can find, unfortunately, a lot of common ground in hate and extremism. And if we fight together, we might be that much more successful. So this is an important effort as well of the JCRC. And of course, outreach to our own community, the Jewish community. We need your support. We need your help. You guys, you're also on the ground. We need to know if things are going on. We need to know if you can help, etc. So we'll be doing a lot of outreach efforts throughout this. We've done it already, and we're going to continue to do so next year. One of the main things that took place in the last year and a half was actually the reboot of the JCRC. Now, it had existed prior to the last couple of years, but when I came on board, we did a little bit of a revamp. And you can see the mission statement. You can read through it quickly. The mission statement. We are dedicated and committed to working with anybody out within the Jewish community or outside the Jewish community who is willing to partner with us to combat hate and anti-Semitism. And that won't change. Whether it's happening locally or in Israel or actually anywhere else, doesn't matter. That's what we're here to do at the moment. This is our #1 mission. Now, the JCRC is made up of, I guess, 3 pillars, we're calling them, which divides up efforts in advocacy, bridging communities, and government relations. Now, these 3 pillars will work together to combat hate, strengthen strengthen interfaith and interracial relations, and of course, advocate for the vulnerable, which has always been the mission of the Jewish Federation. So far, we have been able to put together some programs and also some efforts, some initiatives. We're very proud of the Seeing Human series that we have been doing this year and will continue to do so. This is, its sole purpose, no matter what the subject matter, is again to build relationships with groups outside of our own community. And we talk about from the religious perspective, let's say, how to combat hate, or we talk about ways that we can work together to better our greater community on, through social justice initiatives. It's really endless what we can do together, and keep an eye out for these programs. Some of them are actually, very enjoyable. They're not serious, and they're actually very enjoyable. It can be something as simple as celebrating Thanksgiving together, which again builds trust, builds relationships, builds friendship, and this is what we need. Of course, we continue to discuss what is happening regarding anti-Semitism with national organizations, whether it's Jewish Federations of North America, whether it's ADL, whether it's also non-Jewish groups, more like the Southern Poverty Law Center, etc. Anybody that can give us up-to-date data, real-time data, we want to know. All of this helps us in our efforts. We'll continue, we've been doing and we'll continue to do these community briefings, the one that I'm doing now. And like I said before, we've engaged local, state, and federal politicians almost on a regular basis. Also because of COVID and all of the relief efforts that were taking place, and but we always slipped in this subject of anti-Semitism. So right now I have a very good relationship almost with all our congressional offices. I can call up Frank Pallone's office, or I can call up Chris Smith's office, or Bonnie Watson Coleman's office, and I can ask at the very least for a briefing with the chief of staff, or even with the actual representative. That's how good of a relationship that we have right now, and I'm very proud of that. Okay, moving on. Let me just talk about quickly some great accomplishments we had in 2020. First of all, we had about 80 advocacy meetings, what I mentioned before. Yes, a lot of it was COVID related, but not just. We had about 7 to 10, I think it was more like 10 anti-Semitism briefings this year, whether it was a forum such as this or small parlor meetings in people's homes, in quotes. It was all through Zoom. But we were able to get the word out, which is super important. And we also had 11 interfaith programs. And we did succeed in building strong relationships with the different religious groups and also civic groups in our area. Again, super important. I'm happy to say that our efforts, our advocacy efforts regarding security funding succeeded, and we were able to increase the funding from 90 million to 180 million. Now, of course, this was a national effort, but our JCRC did the advocacy here locally with Frank Pallone, Bonnie Watson Coleman, and Chris Smith, and all 3 voted in favor. Also, the Never Again Act, if you're familiar with it, the Never Again Act provides $10 million over 5 years to disseminate Holocaust-related resources and educational materials to middle school and high schools. This was a long battle to get this passed, and it was successful. Again, this was a national effort, but we did the local advocacy here. So this is huge, and hopefully will start to be implemented this year or next year. And we are tracking it and continuing to work with with the New Jersey Commission on Holocaust Education to see how best to use the money. It's a slow process, like everything government related, but it's been passed and it's done, and hopefully we'll start seeing some changes in public schools as far as bias, as far as Holocaust education. Again, like I said, we've built strong relationships with the different civic organizations and interfaith organizations. So these are things that we worked on this past year, and we're very proud of the success we had. As far as 2021, we are going to continue working hard to build these alliances. We are going to continue to research and identify different prospects as far as contacts in civil rights groups, interfaith councils, and other, ethnic group clubs, whatever that may be. We are going to do things like celebrate secular and religious holidays together, like I mentioned before. All of this, again, is to build relationships. The same goes for the Jewish community. We are here, we're reaching out to anybody that wants to work with us on any of the efforts that and initiatives that I mentioned in this until now, or will mention in this presentation. We are willing to work with anybody that is willing to work with us, anytime, anywhere. And finally, again, we are going to aggressively stay in contact with our legislators, providing them the latest information on the state of anti-Semitism. One of the things I specifically hope to work on this year is the adoption of the IHRA, the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. If you don't know what it is, and briefly I will tell you, but you should look it up. It is a working definition of anti-Semitism that is extremely well written, and it represents for us and what anti-Semitism really is, including anti-Zionism, and how to differentiate between legitimate criticism of Israel's democratic government to delegitimizing Israel. It's very clear in this document, and we're hoping, I am hoping, to get government bodies and law enforcement agencies and other educational institutions in our state and in our 2 counties to adopt this definition. If it's adopted, it's not. It doesn't have any. What's the word I'm looking? It's not. It won't be law. It won't be a law, but it definitely will be a guide for anybody that needs to know if a certain incident or a certain statement was made. If it's anti-Semitism, they can refer to this definition, and it's very clear. And this is especially important for government bodies and law enforcement, in my opinion. Law enforcement, maybe even the number one organizations or agencies that can use this. We will continue, as always, to advocate for the vulnerable populations, Jewish populations in the heart of New Jersey, whether it's Holocaust survivors, people with disabilities, and as long as it's needed, COVID relief. So this is what's going on in 2021. And I'll say it again, we need you to be involved, and I hope you will reach out to me in the future and ask how you can help. And how can you help? Well, again, we need, if you have your own relationships with non-Jewish groups or anyone, let us know, help us connect, support support our efforts by spreading awareness of the state of anti-Semitism and what JCRC is doing, what Federation is doing. Help us communicate. If you can help write letters or anything else, or draft agendas for us when we go speak to our representatives. This is what we would like your help with. And again, facilitating conversations about other issues that might be affecting the Jewish community with non-Jewish communities. all this is needed. We can't do this alone. Federation is your organization. It's a community organization. So, if community members are not involved, it kind of lessens the work or the impact. The more people involved, the more strength we have. That's what I'm trying to say. What else are we doing? So as far as security preparedness, many of you are probably, and I know there are board members in the audience today, and hello, I didn't get a chance to say hi in the beginning, but all know that we have been super involved with all law enforcement agencies on the federal, state, and local level. We have great relationships with them. Amy Keller speaks to them on a regular basis. They provide her with updates on a regular basis. If there's, God forbid, a threat to our community, we know about it immediately, as well as when there are incidents, we are notified and we are able to track and make sure that law enforcement does its job in most cases. I think the most important work that we're doing right now is always securing grants from the federal and state level. So far, we've been able to bring in $6 million in the last 5 or 6 years from these grants specific for Jewish institutions to improve their target hardening, which basically means improving basic security in the building, such as cameras and surveillance systems, lighting, etc. And one of the who helps with these assessments, you have to fill out an application and you have to tell the government what you need. We have volunteers. We have a Federation Security Task Force. Most are former law enforcement or military, and they can come to your facility and do risk assessments, security assessment, and they can tell you what you need, what's wrong, what's wrong with your doors, your lighting, etc. And that usually helps with the grant. So this is really a well-oiled part of Federation, and it's ongoing. And I believe right now the new grant cycle has begun, if I'm not mistaken. But on a more local level or more micro level, what happens when something goes wrong in our community? So I really need to stress, how does it work in Federation? So the first thing I need to stress is that just don't post anything on social media. If there's, God forbid, vandalism in your synagogue or anything like that, do not post it on social media, which is what everyone likes to do immediately. It does not help the situation, and it really does impede on the investigation. So please don't. If you need to call the police first, please do, of course, but call us, let us know, let Amy know, or if Amy's not there, then let me know or anybody know. Because what happens is we file a report with the relevant law enforcement agency, and then they know that we're on it. We're monitoring their actions. And if nothing, if we feel like it's stalled, the investigation stalled, or the report got pushed to the bottom of the pile, we can call them up and start putting pressure. What's going on? We want to know. We don't want this to get lost in the bureaucracy, and we can follow up. If need be, I can contact national organizations to get involved, and all this together allows us to make sure that whatever happened doesn't just disappear and it's just okay, it happened and that's it. No, we will follow up and follow through. Another, what else can you do? Well, you can get yourself prepared. We've had Stop the Bleed courses, we've had active shooter seminars, and like I mentioned, you can do these security assessments. These, especially the Stop the Bleed, these are very easy skills to learn, and you can save a life. And it's exactly that. It's how you learn how to stop, bleeding caused by trauma such as gunshot wounds or stabs or anything, stabbing or anything like that. And you don't need to be Rambo. Anyone can really learn. I promise you. I've taken this course and it's not hard. So keep an eye out. We're going to be doing that again this year. Okay. Now, everything I said up till now won't won't help us combat anti-Semitism unless we change our mindset. And, you know, I think everybody knows already, we're not living in a world, you know, 20, 30 years ago. There are many threats, and we're going to go through them in a second. There are many threats out there, and you need to be in that mindset. And what I mean is, you know, you can see, I'll just give you a really simple example. If you see this guy, he's in a party or whatever, whatnot, he is sweating profusely while others are not. You know, that is something suspicious. Now, I'm not saying that's automatically, you know, a terrorist, but that's something you need to keep an eye out for. And you know, don't be afraid to ask somebody to go, you know, if there's security there or the manager of the whatever, you know, restaurant you're in or whatever, to check this person out, because that's just not normal. Because you can, like I said, the guy next to him doesn't look, you know, he's not sweating. So what's going on? That's all I'm saying. And the other two pictures, you know, especially those of us who've been to Israel a million times, like this is, you know, regular, you know, day-to-day life. Sometimes if there's a suspicious package or object or, you know, some suspicious vehicle, you know, don't just walk by and say it's going to be okay, because it might not. It's better to report it and be mistaken than the other way around. So change your mindset, and then everything I've said up till now will resonate better, and you'll be able to implement these things, and hopefully, you know, maybe, God forbid, if you needed to, save a life. So, you know, see something, say something, right? We've been hearing this since 9/11. It's true to today. And, you know, you can jot down this number, or you can always ask, you know, look it up, but this is a number that you can report, you know, suspicious activity to, or just call 911, of course. Okay. I want to quickly go through, because I want to leave time for some questions. So I want to go through some national statistics for you. Again, this is stats from 2019, and the ADL should be coming out with their report in the spring. But I am told that it will be similar or more, or the numbers will be going up. I really want to stress something that is so disturbing in my opinion, that much of these incidents were recorded in grades K through 12 in the schools, as young as kindergarten all the way to seniors in high school. There have been reported anti-Semitic incidences. So, you know, we all know where that's coming from. It's coming from the home. I don't know what we can actually do about it, but this is the reality. Out of the 2,100 or so anti-Semitic incidents in the country, over 1,100 were cases of harassment. 900 or so were cases of, out of those 1,100 or so, 900 were cases of vandalism. And there were 61 assaults, which was up 56% from the previous year, which resulted in 95 victims and 5 deaths. So, you know, it's not just propaganda. It's not just words. A lot of this turns into violent action. And 270 or so of these incidents were attributed to extremist groups. So it's not just, you know, an individual just yelling some anti-Semitic slur. These are planned attacks or planned acts of vandalism coming from extremist groups. And like I said, K through 12 was, you know, one of the areas where we're seeing a lot of these incidents. About 400 or so were reported in that age range. So I don't know, that for me, that stood out and really, really disturbed me. And it just means we have a lot of work to do as far as education in our schools. So far right now in 2020, I was able to pull some data. The number is 5,700 cases of extremism in the entire country, and about 4,500 cases of white supremacist propaganda. So the numbers are increasing, sometimes even almost double with white supremacists. So unfortunately, we'll have to wait till the spring, but it's not looking great. Just some quick examples of some of the propaganda that's out there. I won't. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, this is our area where the red square is. That's the Northeast. That's New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. So you can see the big circle. Much of what happens nationally is happening in our area. And this is what I meant to say. This is some of the posters that were found in areas like South River, New Brunswick, and other places around the state and the country. I don't think anyone is surprised by some of the text here. Those of us who have been around and seen it and experienced anti-Semitism, have seen this before. But it's just to give you an idea of what's out there. Just some more data about white supremacy. So you can see that almost all of the 2019 extremist-related murders were committed by white supremacists, resulted in 42 deaths. And you can look at the percentages in the bullet points. So, that just proves to us that propaganda leads to violence. We shouldn't be surprised, but it is indeed an issue. Some of the groups to look out for: the base, which I'll talk about soon, Patriot Front, American Identity Movement, etc. You've heard about the Boogaloo movement and the Proud Boys. Proud Boys were in the news recently. I won't get into who they are and what they're made of, but they are right now probably the top right-wing groups to look out for as far as possible violence or acts of terror, domestic terrorism. Moving on, it's not just white supremacists. We've seen in Jersey City, we've seen in Newark, Brooklyn, and Muncie that there is anti-Semitism coming from the Black community. Specifically, well, I shouldn't say specifically. It can either come from organized groups such as the Black Hebrew Israelites movement, which, without getting into it now, in short, they believe that they are the true Jews, and the European Jews, or even those that came from North Africa and the Middle East, are not the true Jews, and they are extremely anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-law enforcement, and they need to be monitored. Also, out of the Jersey City attack, we saw that some of the anti-Jewish rhetoric comes from elected officials. So the woman that you see in the center of this slide, her name is Joan Terrell, and she is part of the Jersey City Board of Education. And her response immediately after the Jersey City event was, where was all this faith and hope when Black homeowners were threatened, intimidated, and harassed by, I want to buy your house, brutes of the Jewish community? That was her first reaction. And there were some efforts to try to get her fired, but as far as I know, it didn't work. So it's coming from all over. And then you have these lone wolf attacks on the streets of Brooklyn and Lakewood. So my point is, it's coming from many directions. The base. Why did I focus on the base? Out of all the neo-Nazi and white supremacist organizations around, the reason is because they are this is an international network, and it was formed by a guy named, or it was created by a man named Ronaldo Nazzaro from Morristown, New Jersey. He's had some aliases, Norman Spear or Roman Wolf. He's currently out of the country. He escaped, quote unquote, and he lives in St. Petersburg, but he runs this organization through the internet, through the dark web, and it's global. There are members all over the country, and they are all unifying online to set up training camps all over the world. They're exchanging ideas of, how to conduct surveillance and terror activity, etc. They are well connected. They work, like I said, through the dark web. And right now, even though the FBI has made some arrests, they are still operating on a daily basis. So we don't know exactly what the future holds for this group. I can only hope that law enforcement does its job, but this is definitely something not to ignore and to keep an eye out for. Globally, again, this is from 2019. The ADL did an extensive survey throughout the world. And these are the numbers. You can just browse and look for a moment. I will say that 18 countries were surveyed. Over 9,000 interviews were conducted, all 18 and over. Some interesting stats, very interesting. 74% of those interviewed never met a Jewish person, but still had these beliefs. 18% thought that Jews made up were 700 million people worldwide, where in actuality we're about a little bit under 14 million. So when there's the typical anti-Semitic trope of Jews control the world, now you kind of know why. They think we're 700 million strong worldwide. 35% never heard of the Holocaust, and only those that did were about 1/3 said that it was either a myth or it was greatly exaggerated. The Middle Eastern country with the lowest anti-Semitism, it's not really the Middle East, is Iran, believe it or not. But the number was 56% of the country is anti-Semitic, but out of all countries in the area of the Middle East and the Gulf, they were the lowest. So numbers here are not great. And more recently, 1 in 5 Europeans say that there's a secret Jewish cabal that runs the world. And I'll skip to the bottom, which is extremely relevant now. 1 in 5 of people in the UK say that we have created the coronavirus to collapse the economy, or for financial gain. So this ancient Middle Eastern type Middle Ages type anti-Semitism that we were responsible for the plague, the same thing is showing up now. I mentioned before that the internet is the main connector, I guess, between anti-Semites. So they are connecting through the internet worldwide, setting up conferences, comparing notes, sharing ideas of how to attack the Jewish community, etc. And the United States is not left out of all this. There's plenty of chatter and plenty of planning going on the internet. It's mostly the dark web, like I said before. The problem is when the FBI shuts down one site, another one springs up, or 2 spring up. So it's very hard to control. So I'm told. What you can see here are some stats from AJC's latest report, specifically on social media. Just kind of let that sink in. And I don't know if you've heard of Elon Carr. He is the U.S. Special Envoy for monitoring and combating anti-Semitism in this current government. I don't know if he will be continuing on, but he reported that Facebook and Twitter see 1.7 million anti-Semitic posts in 2020, or they saw 1.7 million anti-Semitic posts in 2020. So what does that mean? It means that the social media companies need to be held accountable. They are the only ones that can crack down on all this. We've seen some improvement due to some pressure put on by, again, Jewish Federations of North America and ADL. They have been removing here and there anti-Semitic posts and Holocaust denial posts, but not enough. The social media is truly a large propaganda machine, maybe even the biggest in history. And that really is where we need to focus as well. Some coronavirus-related anti-Semitism. Like I said before, the Middle Ages kind of returned. We are responsible for the plague. Now it's just called coronavirus. Jews are doing it for all kinds of reasons. We are the plague itself. I mean, it's just, I gotta say, it's just a repeat of things said over the centuries. Anytime, there is a global pandemic, it's resurfaced, and it's going on all the time. Zoom bombing took place throughout COVID as we all got on to Zoom, and thankfully now Zoom security measures are strong, so it doesn't happen much anymore. but these are just some examples of what happened in the beginning. I want to briefly talk about BDS. Not all anti-Semitism comes from white supremacy, white supremacists and the like. BDS for sure is responsible for a lot of anti-Semitism. The problem with BDS is that they are also able to, I'll talk about it in a second, but they're also able to intersect into other nonprofit organizations that are doing good work in other fields, but happen to influence these organizations to divest from Israel. BDS is an umbrella for other organizations like the National Students for Justice in Palestine, Code Pink, Jewish Voice for Peace, parts of the European Union, parts of Amnesty International, the list goes on. They are not able to, for us, there's BDS is delegitimizes Israel and demonizes Israel, and subjects Israel to double standards. These are the 3 Ds, and this is why for us BDS is anti-Semitic, anti-Zionism, anti-Semitic. This is a quote from Omar Barghouti, who is a co-founder. It's clear that he is not interested in a two-state solution or any kind of solution that includes Jews in the land of Israel. And these are just some pictures from BDS protests. Nothing about this says coexistence, in my opinion. So you might have been asking why we need to build relationships with groups outside of the Jewish community. Well, this is one of the reasons. BDS has inserted itself into these organizations and a lot more, but this is what I've put on the slide at the moment. Anytime there's also some kind of a major racist, action like the George Floyd incident, BDS make sure that Israel somehow is drawn into it, that Israeli police trained the police here, etc. But there was one bizarre example that I really just want to take a minute just to bring up, and this happened in 2016. So the National LGBTQ Task Force canceled an event with their Israeli counterpart because they were convinced by BDS activists that Israel is a colonialist and apartheid state that commits genocide against the Palestinians. What they didn't know is that the Palestinian government officially does not accept anyone from the LGBTQ community, and does, especially Hamas, actually executes Palestinians who are gay. And it was just absurd that this group, this LGBTQ national group here, preferred not to join up with Israeli LGBTQ activists only because BDS, poisoned their way of thinking. So it is our job, the Jewish community, the JCRC here, to educate these groups or any group out there, so as not to get in, so as to block any efforts of BDS. So really, this is one of the main reasons that I believe building alliances outside the Jewish community is super important. So I want to just end really quickly. If anybody had any doubt why I'm up here, it's not just my job. This is my life. I've been doing it forever, whether it was, personally or as part of it being my job. I'm truly dedicated to working for the Jewish people and the Jewish community. This is my motivation. I've experienced anti-Semitism early on in my life. I learned about our history. For me, it was my responsibility, and it's not just because I come from an Israeli home, but it was my feeling that it was my responsibility to defend the only Jewish state in the world, and I did. And I believe that we, the Jewish community, come from strength now, and we can do what we need to do to protect our community from supporting the vulnerable populations all the way to combating anti-Semitism and hate. And you can do your job, your part, sorry. You can volunteer with the JCRC, with Federation. Continue to stay informed. Speak up when you need to, in the office, or right now we're at home, but when you need to and somebody, says something anti-Semitic, speak up. And, I won't lie, Federation doesn't survive without donations, so if you can, please do. And I just want to say that contact me anytime you want, or Amy Keller. We're always willing and ready to talk to you. And thank you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. It's some scary images, some important things I think for us to see. And again, thank you for bringing it to us. And again, I will follow up everyone who's on this call. I will follow up with the information with the recording, but also the contact information for Dan and Federation. Dan, if you want, you can put on your camera if you want, but you're or not.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Just because I had some difficulty, just let me know what you're saying.
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So I have some questions. I'm certainly welcome to bring on some more questions as well. Let me read some of the questions I have so far. It seems to me that an effective strategy to combat anti-Semitism would be to root it out at the top. We have congresspersons who are outspoken anti-Semites. What is JCRC doing to censure these individuals?
So that's a great question, and I was kind of expecting it. So one of the subjects that we hope to talk about when we meet with our legislators is anti-Semitism within the government. I always think about the quote unquote the squad, and I think that that's a good place to start. But I'm sure there are more people in government that hold anti-Semitic views. The only thing we can do here locally is to talk to our representatives. On a national level, I do know that Jewish Federations of North America, which is our parent organization, is also working on this when speaking to officials on their level. Other than that, there's not much we can do on that high level. I actually would prefer, if I could, to work locally, whether it's, again, our congressional representatives, our state representatives, our township government leadership, our schools. We need to educate and update these people to work, it's a grassroots movement, right? To work from the bottom up. That's my answer to you. Just to keep information flowing.
Okay, so I know you're not going to be surprised. I have some questions that relate to the events that happened even this week, Dan.
Okay.
One question. What do you know about the anti-Semites who were a part of the DC Capitol terrorists?
I got to be honest, not much more than what you're seeing on the news as well, although some of the names of the organizations that were mentioned, I just know from security updates that we get at Federation. I'm not sure if you're asking if these specific groups are a huge national threat or not. I don't think I can answer that. I think that's a question that I can ask Homeland Security to answer. But locally, I don't see anything affecting us here right now because of what happened in DC.
Right. Again, I think that we all saw some of these people wearing anti-Semitic shirts, right? So the question:
Correct.
Were they just acting alone, or were they part of some group? And I guess it's hard to tell.
Well, they were definitely part of some group, that we know, and I think it was mentioned as well. The Proud Boys were mentioned. Even some white supremacist groups, I believe it. I forget the name, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that these were lone wolves. I definitely would say that this is some kind of an organized, initiative or effort.
Okay, and related to that, in the light of the events of this past Wednesday in Washington, D.C., do you believe that the increase in white supremacist activity is a result of those groups being emboldened by the messaging or lack thereof from the current president?
So I'm going to answer this way. Anti-Semitism has been around before this president. It'll be after this president. I don't focus on that. I think it's coming from organizations that have already existed and are strong. Were strong before and after, the last 4 years. Focusing on actually, I'll stop there. That's what I'm going to say. It's been around before and it'll be around after. And to say that it's directly related to one specific person, I think is irresponsible for us to do.
Okay. I had a hand. Let me see. Just a second here. Zvi, I think if you have a question you want to ask.
Yes. You talk about trying to build bridges to other groups. How does that fit when you see the Black Lives Matter, BLM, seems to have within it some very strong anti-Semitic elements? I know that when I was at work, and right after the George Floyd incident, they had these things happening in Los Angeles and other places, which I raised. And I got answers saying, oh, you're just worrying about property, which I thought was a horrible, horrible response.
Well, I'm actually very glad you brought it up. So here's what I learned, or here's what I'll tell you. I learned a lot about Black Lives Matter in the last year. And here's what I've learned. There are definitely anti-Semitic elements within this movement, but this is not a movement. It's a very decentralized, I guess, we'll call it a movement, but I really shouldn't, because it's very decentralized. And what do I mean? Even though it seems like it, there isn't one central Black Lives Matter office that runs all of the Black Lives Matter chapters around the country. Each Black Lives Matter chapter does its own thing and has its own beliefs. Some don't agree with other Black Lives Matter chapters that are literally in the next town over. So absolutely, the original founders are connected to BDS. That is true. But theoretically, if there was a Black Lives Matter chapter in Highland Park or East Brunswick, where I am, it doesn't necessarily mean that the two of them agree with each other. So to me, what that means is that I'm willing to listen. And the second it becomes anti-Semitism, I have a choice, anti-Semitic, I have a choice to make. Either I listen to hear what is being said to me and counter with real knowledge, because most of the time, the anti-Semitism that comes out of these left-wing groups is due to misinformation fed by BDS, let's say. I can counter with real facts. Or if I see that there's no convincing, then I don't have a problem getting up and leaving the conversation. But because I know that there isn't one central way of thinking or planning, I can't automatically assume that every Black Lives Matter or every Black organization is anti-Semitic. Even the infamous 2016 policy against Israel, where it was said that Black Lives Matter said that Israel commits genocide and is an apartheid state. Most people don't know that actually came from another movement called the Movement for Black Lives, which the Movement for Black Lives self-proclaimed its control over Black Lives Matter. So even that was questionable whether or not Black Lives Matter was connected. So it's very iffy, it's very unclear. And it's not my job to try to figure it all out, but it just means that I'm willing to start a conversation.
Well, have you met with Black Lives Matter people?
No, I actually haven't, and that's only because it's not because I don't want to. It's because I actually haven't found a local chapter, believe it or not. I know there was one out of East Brunswick, but it was mostly youth, teenagers. So for the moment, that wasn't on my radar. But I do have very good relationships with Black leaders coming from different churches and even mosques that I'm in contact with, who traveled with us to Israel in 2018. Who have I stayed in contact with, and I'm actually very good friends with them on a personal level. So if I needed to, and I did, and I will need to, and I do need to at times, I can pick up a phone and say, hey, look, what's going on? Like, what is all this anti-Semitism coming out of this community, I'm making this up theoretically, this community in Brooklyn, let's say, where is that all coming from? Or, if it's something local, I can absolutely call any one of them up and ask, can you find out why, this church said that thing about Israel, and maybe we can engage them and talk differently and see what we can do to change their minds, or at least to provide real information.
Okay, we have another. Josh, can you unmute and you can ask your question?
Hi, this is actually not a question because I think my question was answered, but I do want to say that Federation came in very handy this week and was very helpful. On Wednesday, we wanted to know what kinds of things we should be doing to protect the children at RPRY, where I'm the executive director. And the fact that within minutes, literally minutes, I was able to communicate with Amy. Stacey Feldman also called me and gave me guidance. I'm not going to share what that guidance was because that would be inappropriate. But the fact was that we were prepared and ready to respond to what was kind of going on at the time. So I just want to express my appreciation for that. And please, I don't know if Amy's on the call, but you can certainly express that to her.
Hey, Josh, I don't think she is, and I'll definitely let her know, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, we have a question from Gil. You can unmute yourself. Or no? Is that just a mistake? Maybe just a click and a mistake. Not a problem. Okay, I have another note. Thanks for a great meeting over here. Just wanted to give you that feedback. That came up as a question, not really a question, but that was a kind of a thank you. I have another question. How many people belong to the base?
I don't know. I can find out, but I don't know. Definitely thousands worldwide, for sure. Even if they're sub-organizations that are ally themselves or connect themselves to the base, I count them as well. Like you have groups in Ukraine that are connected to the groups, to the base. You have groups in many places in Eastern Europe that are, working with this organization to conduct activity against minorities and Jews.
Okay.
But I don't have an exact number, sorry.
I think that's all the questions I have for now. So Dan, again, I want to thank you on behalf of the Orthodox Forum for taking the time tonight and sharing with us some scary details. Again, I will send an email out to everybody who's on the call. It will include some contact information for the JCRC and a link. We will be posting the recording of this on the Orthodox Forum website. So with that, thank you very much, and everyone have a